Today's daf we're going to be learning is Nedarim daf Ayin Bet. This month's learning is sponsored by Elaine Hochberg in honor of her husband Ari Hochberg, who continues to journey through daf Yomi with her, and with thanks to Rabbanit, Farber, and Hadran, who have made our learning possible. So on that note, specifically, this month's learning was dedicated today on January 5th, the third anniversary on the English date of the Siyum Shas. So as I said yesterday, right, it's a very exciting moment. And we can just look forward with excitement to the next 4.5 years. Okay, starting with our question. We'll go back for a quick minute to the question on Ayin Aleph Amud Bet. We asked, today's structure is going to be a very, very easy structure. And you can see it on the study guide. We have basically, I actually organized the first section both in the chart form and in the regular kind of structure form. We're going to have a question. We're going to have 3 attempts to answer the question, and each attempt is going to be rejected. Then we're going to move to the next Mishna. And then after the Mishna, we're going to have another question. And that question is going to also have, in this case, 4 attempts to answer the question, and none of the attempts are going to be successful. So we're going to have a lot of unsuccessful attempts today and be left with a lot of questions. So the question the Gemara asked was, Gerushin kishtika damya o kakama damya? When a husband divorces his wife, is he basically at the moment of divorce saying, and any vow that I heard today is going, right, if kind of there's an open vow that he had heard that morning, is going to be nullified by him divorcing her? We mentioned yesterday one reason that possibly we would think this because he's angry at her and therefore wants to keep her stuck with her vows, because nullifying her vows is actually helpful to her to get her out of a situation where she might have said something she didn't really mean. And the Ran adds a different reason, which is if you look toward the bottom of the Ran where it says Ibaylehu Gerushin Kashtika Damyan, he says Mishum de Kevan de Yada Arus de Labatar Gerushin Lomatse Mafer. Since he knew that as soon as he divorces her, he's not going to be able to nullify her vows anymore, and yet Lo Hefer Kodin, he knew it was his last moment to do it, and he didn't do it. Perhaps that's like Shtika, baby. Maybe like shtika at the end of the day, right? If you're silent the entire day and don't say anything, it's as if you established the vow, you ratified it. So therefore, perhaps by divorcing her, where he was cutting off his options for the rest of the day and for the rest of anything, maybe by doing that, he was saying basically this is as if it's the end of the day and your vows are ratified. And then we had said L'may nafka mina, and the Gemara had given this example of where he divorces her and then remarries her. If, again, it would have to be betrothal, not marriage, because once he marries her, he can no longer annul any vows that were from before, only starting from the marriage. It's only while they're in the Erusin period where the father and the husband are together. Since the father can do earlier ones, the husband gets the power to do that as well. But what if he divorces her and then does Kiddushin, Erusin again in that same day? If you say it's kiyum, then there's nothing to do, right? He can't annul them anymore. If you say it's nothing, like shtika, like silent, then it's still the same day. It would be no problem. There's also other nafkaminas. For example, the father, right? Let's say the husband divorces her, but it's still the same day. And can the father come and, right now she's fully in her father's reshut after the divorce, could the father nullify the vow? Now, if you say it's kiyum and the husband already was makayem the neder, the father can't do it. That's a very basic nafkamina. Interesting, the Gemara didn't mention it, but it's also a nafkamina here. So now the Gemara says, let's try to learn it from here. And we're going to quote that Tosefta that raised all these complicated cases, but we're going to start with the beginning, which is pretty straightforward. Tashma, in what case do we say that if the husband dies, the father gets all the rights to nullify the vows? So if you remember, this was before we got into the 4 permutations. We first just gave the basic general idea. And we said here, Bizman shelo shama habal, we're going to have all different options of non-ratification. So number 1, the husband didn't even hear. Let's remember, once the husband ratifies it, the father can't do anything, even if the husband dies. So if Lo shama habal, he didn't even hear the vow, then obviously he didn't do kiyum, right? It's not the neder. We're trying to find all sorts of options where the neder is not ratified. Oh, shama ve'efer, or he heard and nullified it. Oh, shama v'shatak, umeifo bayom, or he was silent and died in the same day. Meaning it's still the same day, which gives the father options to continue to nullify the vow. Now, now notice what's missing here. It doesn't say if he divorced her. So therefore, why do they assume divorce is missing here? Because it's maybe divorce is kiyum haneder. So if we thought gerushin meant he didn't really do anything and the father could still nullify the vow, litni nami o shama v'geresh. It should have said, or he heard and divorced her, right? If it was giving all the options, heard, right, didn't hear, heard and was silent, heard and nullified, you should have added to the list, heard and divorced, which would be the same, and then it would be nothing, in which case, the father gets all the options. So, the fact that it doesn't say this, it must be, gerushin is kiyum haneder. Otherwise, it would have listed it here. But the Gemara says that's a ridiculous inference from that Tosefta, because what's the next line? The next line is Ema Seifa. Look at the next line. Aval im shama v'kiyem. Now, the Tosefta gave two tracks. One track, the husband nullified or didn't do anything, in which case the father can come in and do it all once the husband dies. Second track was the husband did kiyum haneder. He ratified it. So now, if you say that gerushin is kiyum haneder, but it doesn't appear on the kiyum haneder side. So again, it's going to be the same idea. It's like it didn't appear there. You can't infer because it didn't appear there either. So let's read that inside. Aval im shama v'kiyem, he heard and ratified. Oh, shama v'shatak umet b'yom shel acharav. He heard, was silent, but only died the next day, which means already by the end of that day, that was automatically ratified. Then ein yachol lafer. Then the father can nullify the vow. And Iyamar gerushin ka kamadami. And if you want to say that gerushin is like kiyum haneder, litni v'im shama v'geresh, it should have listed there if he heard and divorced her. So the fact that it's not mentioned in this Mishna, now they're going to say, so according to this logic, the logic you said a minute ago would conclude from this Tosefta that gerushin is kiyum haneder. Now we'll learn from the second part, it's not listed there, or it must be because it's not there, because it's not kiyum, it must be like silence. So, you clearly can't learn anything from this source because it just didn't relate to the gerushin case. And therefore, the Gemara now has this, again, shows some unique language by Nedarim in this our Masechet. Basically, it's saying, if it was left out in the Reisha specifically, because it's not like shtika, and then it just, because of that, the Seifa didn't mention it either. And he Seifa dafka nasiv reisha mishum Seifa, nasiv reisha mishum Seifa. In other words, we don't know really which way it goes. It could go either way, and therefore there's no way to conclude. So that was our first attempt, wholly unsuccessful. Next attempt. By the way, this doesn't mean it's just we can't conclude anything from here. We don't know how to read it. This is clearly an inconclusive Mishna. And again, you just say simply they weren't relating to gerushin. Tashma, next source. Nedra b'hiarusa v'nitgarsha v'nidarsa bo b'yom. Oh, this is our Mishna. If she took a ned while she was betrothed, and then she got divorced, v'nidarsa bo b'yom, and then she gets betrothed again in the same day. This is another nafkamina, actually, right? We had two nafkaminas. One if he remarries her, right, or re-betroths her on the same day, if the father wants to do it. And here's the third nafkamina, which is exactly the Mishna, which is what if she gets betrothed to someone else on that same day? Can he nullify the vow? Now, again, if we say it's kiyum, then no one can nullify it after. So what does our Mishnah say? If she gets betrothed on the same day after the divorce, afilu lameh, even to 100 people, avia ubalaha acharon mifirim nidareh. Well, that's quite clear. Because what does it say? Her father and the second husband are allowed, the second fiance, are allowed to nullify her vows. Now, Shema Mina, from here, it clearly infers gerushin kishtika damu, that the fact that he divorces her clearly wasn't a ratification of the vow, because if it was ratification of the vow, nothing would be able to happen after. And here we see the husband, the last betrothed husband, and the father can nullify the vows. So that's pretty clear. If it was kiyum haneder, aris acharon, nidre deokim aris rishon. How could the aris acharon, the final fiance, and obviously the father, nullify the vow that the first fiance already established, ratified. So, which the Gemara says, no, you don't necessarily have to read the Mishna as you just thought, but maybe the Mishna is only referring to cases that the first fiance never even heard. And if he never heard about them, well, then obviously when he divorced her, he can't ratify a neder that he never heard. And therefore, maybe the Mishna is only referring to if the first husband never heard them. If he heard them, again, this is inconclusive. It could go either way. Either it's talking about all vows, even if he heard them, and then it shows Gerushin is like silence and it didn't do anything, and therefore someone could come along later. Or maybe it's talking about vows he never heard. And therefore it's just saying if she had a vow that her husband didn't know about, when she gets divorced and remarried on the same day, then again, re-engaged, re-betrothed, then the second arus with the father can annul the vow. To which the Gemara says, then why was it so important to the Mishna to say on that day? Because if the first husband never heard them, then basically when does the nullification come up as an issue? On the day that the husband and the father hear. So that could happen. Notice what the Mishna says. They go back to that 100, right? The 100 exaggerated number, right? Oh, it could be 100 days later they could hear about it and they could still annul it, because it doesn't matter when the wife made the neder, the woman, it all matters what day they heard. It could be very often the woman takes a vow between herself, right? She doesn't tell them that she took the vow, and they only find out later. So why was the Mishna so, if the first husband didn't even hear it that day, then why does the Mishna go to all lengths to say it has to be this crazy case where, right, she betrothed even 100 men all on the same day? It would have to be on the same day. To which the Gemara says, obviously, we have a good answer for this. Well, it's true the Arus didn't hear it, the first fiance, you could say anyway. We don't know, but we're suggesting. But it could be the father. In other words, it must be a case where the father heard the vow that day. So now, she's in the morning, she's still betrothed to the first husband. The father hears the vow. He and the first husband have the rights to annul it, but the first husband, it never got to the point where the first husband heard. He already divorces her. Now, that doesn't teach us anything about his divorce kiyum or not, because the first husband never even knew about the neder. And the chiddush of the Mishna is, since the father heard in the morning, when she was betrothed to one husband, by the afternoon she's betrothed to somebody else, the new husband is allowed to annul the neder, and needs to. If we want this neder to be nullified, the second husband comes in the place of the first husband, and he needs to nullify the vow as well. In which case, this teaches us nothing about our topic, because we needed a case where the first husband heard the neder and then divorced her. So then, again, we're going to read this inside. So, only on that day can it be nullified because the father already heard it. But after that, they can't nullify it because the father already heard it. So now that's one possible way to understand that Mishnah, in which case it's inconclusive from our Mishnah, the answer to our question. Last attempt, which again is going to be unsuccessful, Tashma. Let's learn from here. Nadra bo bayom, girsha v'hechzira bo bayom. Okay, so she takes a vow, and then, this is exactly the nafkamina case. He divorces her, and then now, fill in the blank, re-betroths her, remarries her, we don't know. Okay, it says, hichzira, he returns her. Now, we don't know. Now, it's all good. That's going to make all the difference. If he re-betroths her, that's exactly our question. If he remarries her, we already said that's not the question. So that's already where the Gemara is going to go. Right now, let's just assume we think it means he re-betroths her. He can no longer nullify the vow, to which the Gemara says, from here you can learn, it must be that divorce is ratification, and that's why when he remarries her, he can no longer do the vow. Ambre, they say, wait, no, you could say, this is marriage, not betrothal. Remember, our whole question was betrothal, because when it's betrothal, he's allowed to be made for any Nedarim she had before because of his rights with the father. If he remarries her on that day, then what's the issue? It doesn't matter that he was the one married to her before. Now he remarries her, since there was a divorce in the middle, having nothing to do with this divorce ratification or silence or what does the divorce do. The point is that now he remarries her. At the moment of marriage, he can no longer annul anything that was from before. So therefore, even though he was the one married to her before, that doesn't make any bit of a difference. And basically, he has no rights to nullify her vows. So again, that doesn't teach us anything, because our question was, what if he betroths her, not remarries her? If he remarries her, for sure, it's going to be a problem. And that maybe is what that Tannaitic source is talking about, and therefore inconclusive. So as I said, maybe these sources are saying what we think they're saying, but maybe they're not, and therefore we're stuck with our question. New Mishna. Derech Talmidei Chachamim, the way of Torah scholars was to do the following. Just before his daughter was about to get married and leave his domain in terms of vows, what would he do? Omerla, sounds a lot like what we do, Hatarat Nedarim, very similar. He says to her, right? So wedding preparations, people are doing their hair, they're this, they're, right? Everybody's getting ready. The father comes over to the daughter and says, listen, okay, any vows you make are going to be nullified. Okay, that was the father's preparation on the wedding day. Make sure she starts with a clean slate, no vows upon her. And you know what? Not only that, the husband would do it, because remember, the husband on that day can still go back and nullify any vows she made before. But once the marriage kicks in, no way can he do it before. So now, by the way, this seems to indicate that they didn't have such a custom of not seeing the bride and the groom before the wedding, right? Because he would go to her before the wedding and say, any vows, unless you say he did it the week before, okay? But anyway, I don't think that's an old custom from way back when. So anyway, he would say to her, until anything you vowed, until the marriage is mufal. Now here comes the summary line. What's the reason for all these Talmidei Chachamim that would do this? The father, the husband, because okay, once she came into his domain, there was no way to nullify the ned. Good suggestion. Maybe they did the bedekin. Okay, so now we go to the Gemara's question. And I don't know if you were thinking about this, because this kind of goes against what we thought about nullification of these Nedarim in general, because of this big issue that Rami bar Hama is going to ask. So this question is kind of asked, we're not yet in the Mishna, but the Mishna is going to obviously stand as a proof or a way to get to an answer to this question. And we're going to do a very similar structure, what we just did previously, which is we have a question, we try to answer it from multiple sources, and then we say, you could read these sources in different ways. By Rami bar Hama, he asked the following question. Can the husband nullify the vow without having heard it? Now, doesn't the husband need to hear the vow? How can the father just come, right? I'm already kind of preempting, but we're wondering this in the Mishnah. Didn't the husband need to hear the vow? Didn't the father need to hear the vow? They can't just get up and say, any vow, blah, 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 blah. Just like we talk about Hatarat Nedarim. Yeah, we do this generally, but if you know of a vow and you really want to get rid of it, you have to actually say what the vow is. So he says, do we say Vishama Isha? Now, where do we get this whole idea that the husband needs to hear it? Because it says in the Torah, Vishama Isha, the husband hears. So Vishama Isha dafkahu, is Shama Isha specifically Shama Isha? Oh, lav dafkahu, or is it not specifically? Is it just saying normally what happens is she vows, he hears, he nullified. And the Torah was just talking about the normal way of it happening, but doesn't necessarily mean he has to hear. So how literally do you take the husband hears? Does it have to happen? It's possible, but it could happen. He could nullify it without even hearing it. So Amarava, Tashma Rava says, it's obvious from our Mishnah what the answer to that question is, because here he nullifies without having heard it. Derech Talmud. So the first attempt is just the first part of the Mishnah about the father. So they quote the Mishnah, the Talmidei Chachamim would stand up on the wedding day of their daughters and say, anything you said is nullified. V'halo shama, and clearly he didn't know of the vows, he didn't hear them. So say, no, when he actually hears the vow, then he'll nullify it. That's very weird. What do you mean? If he's only going to nullify them when he hears them, so then why did he make that statement? If basically they're saying this is a useless statement. It's only going to be relevant if she tells him on, in the next few hours, by the way, I had this neder. And then when he hears he'll be mayfair, well, then that was a useless thing that he did earlier. It wasn't useless. They want to teach you is the way of Talmidei Chachamim was to basically remind their daughters on the wedding day and say, fess up, like, let's hear. Did you have any vows on you? So he makes this statement in order to get her to start talking and saying, oh, by the way, I took a neder about this. And then he'll nullify that vow when he hears it. Okay, so it's not really the simple reading. It's not at all the simple reading of the Mishnah, certainly not the way we heard it. Again, this is a possible reading. It depends how you answer the question of Rami bar Hama. Maybe, yes, he doesn't need to, or maybe he does need to, and this really was in the case just to kind of get her to talk about her vows, and then he would actually nullify each one once he heard it. Again, we're going to do the same thing with the Seifa, Tashmami Seifa. So let's learn from the second part. Etc. Okay, they don't even quote it. Hachanami, so again, and they don't even quote, right? It's obvious he didn't hear them. Again, Hachanami, here he could say to her, this is a little different, and some of the commentaries explain that what he's saying is, and we're going to see this with the next two, what he's saying is, I'm nullifying them now, or I'm telling you that I'm going to nullify any vows that you made when I hear about them. So as time goes on, if I hear about them while we're married, now the father can't do that because he's no longer going to be in charge of her. The husband is going to have rights to continue to nullify her vows. So he's saying, any vow that you made from before, when I hear it, it'll be nullified. So the nullification will kind of kick in now while I'm still betrothed to you, but it might only happen later. Or some people say maybe he has to hear it on that day. And that's, again, maybe he's getting her to talk, etc. Two different ways of understanding. Tashma. He's going away on a trip, and he says to her, any vows that you make while I'm away, he's mekayim the Nedarim. That for sure doesn't work. But if he says they're nullified, Rabbi Eliezer holds it's nullified. But he didn't hear them, so how could he do it? Again, proof that you don't need to hear. So hachanami da'amar lechi shamana. So again, he says they'll be nullified when I hear about them. V'lama li min hashta lechi shama leferla. So then again, he's standing now and he's saying, right now I'm saying I'm nullifying them. So when in the future, in 3 months from now, I hear you took a vow, it'll be, I don't need to do anything at that point. It'll already be mufar from now. To which the Gemara says, well, lama li min hashta. Why is he doing it now then? L'chi shama leferla. And as if he's away and he's worried he's not going to hear the Nedarim, it doesn't really matter. And as once he hears them, so then he'll be able to be made for them. Why would he stand now and do this in advance if he can just do it later? Because then no matter what, he has to be involved because he has to hear it. To which the Gemara says, he wants to cover his bases. He's worried that maybe he'll be busy at that exact moment and will forget to deal with it. And because of that, he'll basically not do it. So he does it now saying, I want to make sure that I cover all my bases. And if in the future you're going to take a neder and I'll hear about it, it'll already from right now be ufal. Okay, in other words, it won't be from now, but my statement will kick in then. Okay, so I've dealt with it in that way. What's the issue? Well, the issue is he only has that day to do it. So if he's busy, at the moment he hears it, he's busy. How many times do we have that where we think, oh yeah, I'm going to deal with this, and then the day passes and you forgot to deal with it, right? So if he was in the middle of something at that moment, this is a way of covering himself. Tashma, last source. He has a messenger or someone he puts in charge. Okay, he goes away, he puts someone in charge of his stuff. So what does he say to him? Kol Nedarim, very similar to the previous, except that he put someone else in charge. Kol Nedarim shenederet ishti mikam ad shavo lamakam ploni hafel. Anything that my wife takes a neder while I'm away, instead of saying, I'm going to be made for them now, he says, I want you to nullify any vow that she makes. Veheferla, and he does. Yachol yu mufarim. Do you think that works? Talmud lomar. Ishayi kemenev Ishayi ferena. Divrei Rabbi Yoshia. Rabbi Yoshia basically says in the Torah, the husband has to do it. Okay, just like you can't daven for someone else, you can't go to the bathroom for someone else. You can't nullify a husband's vows for his wife in place of him. Okay, even though we have this concept, shaliach can do anything, he can't really do everything. Okay, so this he can't because the Torah says so. Torah specifically says the husband does it, and that's all there is to it. Rabbi Yonatan disagrees and says, what do you mean? The whole Torah, it says a messenger is like the person. He could do it just as well here. So now they say, what was Rabbi Yoshia's logic, the Gemara says? Only because what we call gzerat hakatuv. The Torah said so. But without the Torah, theoretically, could have done it. Theoretically, the shaliach could do it. What's the problem? But the husband didn't hear it. How can the shaliach nullify the vow when the husband didn't even hear it? And as I understand, he could be a shaliach to nullify vows, but only if you have to hear it, then the husband never heard it. How can he nullify without the husband hearing it? So first of all, this good question asked, which is, why can't the shaliach be a shaliach, a messenger, also for hearing, right? You could, if he takes the place of the husband in terms of nullifying, why can't he take the place of the husband in terms of hearing? Okay, so that's a fascinating question. Some of the commentaries say hearing is different from doing. It's just something that happens. It's not something you actively do. It's a fascinating answer. Anyway, there's a bunch of answers given. That's really the question. I'll just quickly finish up with the answer because we're kind of in the middle of a sentence, even though it's on the next stuff. So now the point is the husband never heard. So how can the shaliach get up there and say to the woman, your vows are nullified when the husband never heard them? Hachinami, if you haven't heard this already, the shaliach says to the woman, this neder will be nullified when your husband hears it. So again, the Gemara is going to say, well, then what did it help with the messenger? If it's only going to be nullified when the husband hears, the obvious question, as we keep asking, is well, when he hears it, he should do it himself. What did it help to set up this messenger? Again, what did it help for? He's worried maybe he'll be busy that day when he hears about it and he'll forget to nullify it, and then it will be valid. So he wants to make sure that he takes care of it, and that's why he sends this messenger when he's away to basically anytime she takes a vow and the messenger hears, he says, listen, when you take this, when your husband hears about this, it's going to be nullified. And then as soon as the husband hears, it's immediately nullified because the nullification was already taken care of by the messenger. Now, just to remind you, that's only according to Rabbi Yonatan, because Rabbi Yoshia theoretically thinks that this could work, but practically it doesn't because of the gzerat hakatuv, that only the husband can do it, and then it doesn't work according to him. According to Rabbi Yonatan, it would work. That's it for today. We'll finish here. Have a great day, everybody.